Hey friend, welcome back to the Vision Driven Health Podcast, your go-to show for learning how to create healthy habits that last in partnership with the God who created you. In today's conversation, you'll get a peek behind the curtain of my life. I just resonated so much with the story and work of today's guest that I just couldn't help but share how I struggle with a lot of the things that she specifically helps moms overcome. If you're like me, you might be in a season of chaos with your kids, trying to juggle it all and to keep your head above water. It can feel like you've lost yourself, and it can feel like a daily challenge to be the mom that you want to be, let alone get in a workout or care for your own well-being. I don't think I'm alone on this, and I'm grateful that God has people like Aubree who have gotten his direction and strategy on how to step into an intentional mom life. Do you find yourself struggling to consistently implement healthy habits? Do you lack energy, confidence, and motivation because of stress, overwhelm, and shame for having not gotten it together by now? Friend, there is hope and grace for your health. Hey, I'm Robin Ryan McDonald, host of the Vision Driven Health Podcast. I'm a follower of Jesus, a wife, a mama of two, and a seminarian turned health coach. And I'm so excited that you're here. I found myself in my early 20s captive to cravings and convenience. 20 pounds heavier, super tired, with a face full of acne. I could not figure out how to maintain healthy habits until I discovered the power of aligning my choices with God's vision. 10 years and 2 kids later, by the grace of God, I'm still prioritizing my health and feeling amazing. If you are over quick fixes and are ready to feel good in your own skin, then grab a giant water bottle and let's dive on in. In today's conversation, we talk a lot about the chaos of motherhood and the challenges we face with caring for our own well-being when it just doesn't feel like there's enough time. To make the nutrition side of things super easy for you, check out my free 20 recipes in 20 minutes PDF. Each recipe has 30 grams of protein to ensure you're satisfied and energized to face the challenges of the day without taking away tons of time to have to prepare all these meals. Get this totally free at visiondrivenhealth.com/resources. Friend, today we have Aubree Felderhoff. She is a spark coach for moms. She's a mom of 3 spirited boys. She's the host of the top-ranked Mom Intentional podcast. After a sudden life-altering illness left her bedridden and completely disconnected from who she was, Aubree faced a hard truth. She had spent so long taking care of everyone else, she no longer recognized herself. That breaking point became the start of her mission. So now she helps overwhelmed moms who feel lost in motherhood rediscover their identity, rebuild their confidence, and create a life they love. Through coaching designed to help women reclaim their spark, Aubree guides moms from burnout to purpose so they can stop running on empty and finally feel alive again. As she often says, "You're not broken, you're buried. Let's uncover you." Amen. We love this. I'm excited. I need this. Aubree, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robin. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so your story of having this life-altering illness, I would love to hear more about that and how you ended up creating this incredible work.
Yeah, so it actually started when I became a mom.
Go figure.
Yeah, I had my first little boy, and we had just moved into our brand new house. It was going to be our forever home, where I got pregnant with my second little boy pretty close together. And as soon as I gave birth to my second son, so they were 17 months apart, I
Okay,
became oddly ill. And I know that sometimes pregnancy triggers, a hormonal shift for women.
sure.
And so at first we thought it was just a weird post-pregnancy thing, but it continued. And as it continued, it became clear to us that I was having some sort of issue that was uncommon.
Mm.
And it grew, and that kind of started the process of 7 years of us searching over
Whoa.
31 doctors across the country. And my symptoms grew to where I was getting diagnosed with everything. They thought I had brain cancer. I lost a lot of my vision. I lost most of my hair. I was having blackouts, seizure-like activity. I could no longer drive. I could no longer stand. I couldn't walk. I mean, it
Oh
wasn't
my
like little things. It
gosh.
started little, but it grew to pretty life altering, where I was basically bedridden or parenting from the floor all days. I was no longer able to work. I used to own a boot camp and did fitness classes full time.
Wow.
And so, anyways, it obviously got very bad. And I got to a breaking point after year 7. I had searched all across the country at labs constantly being told it was anything from in my head to cancer to brain tumors, in and out of ERs and specialists and every which way. I decided I just got on my knees one night and told God, I can't anymore. I felt like I was a burden to my family. We had drained our savings trying to find my answer. I couldn't take care of my boys at all. I was a stay-at-home mom, but we had someone coming in to help me because I couldn't drive anymore to get to my doctor's appointments, much less take
Wow.
care of them. So I basically prayed for God to either take me or give me a miracle. And he
Yeah.
did. He did literally the next day. And that really is the start of the story. But he gave me my answer and then I could work on healing. And once I got well, I thought that I was finally going to be this intentional mom, the mom that I'd always thought of. When you think about being a
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
when you first get pregnant and you're dreaming about what that's going to be like, and you look at the
Yeah.
vision, I had this beautiful idea in my head of what type of mom I was going to be. And, I pictured all the things I was going to do with them. And it didn't turn out like that. And, life is unexpected. I wasn't expecting to get chronically ill and almost die. And
Yeah.
often we don't expect to have more than one baby at a time or someone to pass away or a divorce, all these unexpected things that happen in
Hmm.
our life. And I wasn't prepared. So once that all went away, I thought that was the reason why I wasn't an intentional mom. But what I
Mm.
realized was I still felt like I was in survival mode once I got well. I still felt like I was drowning. I was not intentional. I didn't have any skill set to be able to live proactively. I was just living by the seat of my pants because I didn't have any sort of infrastructure set up. I wasn't taught how to be a mom and set up my home, and I didn't develop the skills. And it then dawned on me, oh, this is something that a lot of moms go through, not just moms that are sick or moms that are,
Yes.
whatever the hardship is. But moms in general, we're often thrown these life circumstances or just unknowns, motherhood.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Nobody can prepare you for that. We're often thrown those things and we're not set up to handle them. And if we aren't intentional and we don't set up the infrastructure, the systems in our life, a path, a plan, then we can blink and life has gone by and we look back and say, man, I wish I had been there more for my
Hmm.
kids, or I wish I had
Hmm.
started a business, or I wish I had taken care of my body to where I didn't get this chronic illness later on.
Hmm.
But I was so busy, saying, I'm so busy, I'll do it later.
Yeah.
So that's really what started me looking into how do I become an intentional mom? And what does that look like? How do I set up the systems structure in my home and in my life so that I can live on purpose and not just live, dealing with things that are getting thrown at me? And that's how Mom Intentional was born.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's so hard. I mean, all the moms can, I'm sure, relate so deeply with the concept of like, you could not care for your children for years. Like, that's horrible and so hard. And I just, it's like perspective, like, okay, I'm never gonna complain. Like, it's fine. I'm just kidding. I mean, it is all hard and whatnot, but I don't know if you were planning to share. I was like on the edge of my seat, like, well, what was it? What did they discover that was actually the problem?
Yeah. So it was a lot of testing, but I have a genetic a genetic condition that causes my body not to be able to detox properly. It's kind of a broken communication line in my body.
Interesting.
And yeah, so I struggle with detoxing things like, well, certain illnesses, so like Lyme disease
Uh,
or COVID or those types of things, those cycle a lot more and cause a lot more inflammation. And the big trigger for me was mold. And so we lived by a pond that had a bunch of mold spores that, they're invisible. I had no idea. And other people can be by mold or by,
Yeah.
they get other things, biotoxins, and they don't have an issue. But just for me personally, because of my genetic snippet, I got the great
Yeah.
genes. My body cannot detox. And so as it was trying to pull and pull and pull and detox it, it wasn't able to. It was being reabsorbed and causing systemic inflammation across the board, which is why I had
Wow.
so many symptoms in so many different areas, with my
Right.
skin and my hair and my brain and my heart had become enlarged. I had all these issues
Oh my
across the board.
gosh.
But that's not something that's easy to find. It's not something that a lot of doctors are educated on, which is why I got so many diagnoses of different things
Right.
before we finally found it. So the key for us was actually to move
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
start from scratch. And so that was hard.
Yeah.
I really had to set up the infrastructures then, right, to start over and heal at the same time. But it was a blessing. It was definitely God gave me an answer that no man could have and gave me a path. And so I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that he gave me a path out and that I learned so much from it.
Yeah. And you look very well. Praise the Lord too.
Yes, much better, much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, we won't go down the rabbit trail of the medical system and all that. I'm so sorry that you had to, it took that long to be able to get answers. And I think hopefully I feel like this day and age, all the like more like health-minded or natural mom groups I'm in, when someone like, this is going on, what is it? Like half of the answers are like, it's mold. Like I feel like now like it's just a more like, I don't know, well-known thing. But my heart's so sad for you that that was such a horrible long journey. And one of the biggest challenges of the medical system, I'll say this one thing, and then I really want to talk about being intentional as a mom, is everything's so siloed. And so for you saying like, oh, so then you go see the brain doctor, then you go see
Yes,
the heart doctor, then you go see the dermatologist, and like,
yes,
and nobody has a cohesive answer because they're not looking at, like you said, the systems of your body to be able to determine that there's something triggering these various side effects. And that's just, yeah, the biggest challenge when someone has something like that.
yes, 100%. And especially American doctors
Right.
are usually trained in the body system that they specialize in. So,
Hmm.
a heart doctor is looking at everything from the lens of cardiology, but they're not looking at, well, is this actually triggered by inflammation over from, mold or Lyme or something else? They're only looking at their system. So, of course, you'll get a diagnosis because your symptoms look like that. But if
Right.
you don't look at the root cause, you're really just band-aiding it anyways. And I went through that for a long time,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
long time. But
Bless you. Well, I love God is so good. Like he takes the hard things. I feel like his heart is so much of like not to waste anything. He loves us so much. And yes, we're in this broken world. Yes, we face incredibly challenging, hard things. This has been something on my mind recently of just stuff we've gone through. And at the same time, God's good. He's faithful. He reveals himself. He's with us. And what you've created here is so, so cool. And I love this line that you have. You're not broken. You're buried. And like that sounds like a line that the Lord gave you because I'm like, that resonates with me. Like, I'm like, that must be what it is. Like, I'm down here, I'm in here somewhere. Can you can you share more of what that means and how that came from this crazy challenging journey that you have experienced?
yeah, so I think a lot of moms probably understand what that feels like, or at least,
Yes.
in that season. But I felt buried, as if I was being buried alive. I knew I wanted to be a certain type of mom and a certain type of woman. It wasn't just about motherhood. I knew who I was before motherhood.
Yeah.
I knew what I envisioned for myself as a mom. And then, of course,
Yeah.
getting sick, but also just the demands of
Hmm.
motherhood in general. Even when I got well, I still had so many challenges. And I felt as if I couldn't get to who I wanted to be
Hmm.
because there was no quote unquote time, right? Like there was no
Yes.
time
Right.
for me to spend on myself and setting up the systems. I was just trying to survive. When you're in survival mode,
Hmm.
you are not in a place where you're capable of growing and stretching and being creative and setting up this beautiful system for yourself to get more time. You're literally surviving. Your head is just,
Right.
inches above the water and you're
Right.
fighting for your life. Now, whether it's actually, in the form of medical like I was, or when I was well, I still felt like I was fighting for my life. I was gasping for air. I was gasping for connection with my husband and my kids and
Right.
time for myself to take a shower and work out and
Yep.
feed myself with fun activities that I used to do. All of that was buried and I
Hmm.
didn't know how to get it. But what I recognized was for the longest time, I thought I'm a bad mom. Like I was a bad
Hmm.
mom when I was sick. I was reacting. I was impatient. I don't even like talking about some of the stuff that happened. I'm ashamed of just what happened, but also I've learned to give myself grace over
Yeah.
the fact that I did the best I could do with what I had. I didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the tools set up yet. I didn't have
Yeah.
my systems in place to give me that breathing room. So I wasn't broken. I was just buried under
Yeah.
all of the expectations and the pain and the hardship and the fact that I am a good mom, trying my darn hardest to do everything for everyone else and forgetting that that includes feeding myself and my soul. And so
Yeah.
that's really where that idea came from is I wasn't broken, I was just buried. And once I started digging myself out little piece by
Yeah.
little piece and starting to give myself a little bit more oxygen, bring my head a little bit above the water again, I recognized that it wasn't me, it was just a misalignment. I had
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
skipped the step of setting up the foundation. And when you do that, obviously things are going to start to crumble. And so you've got to go backwards. You've got
Yeah.
to set up the foundation, get yourself above the water, and then you'll be able to have that breathing room and to start making strides.
Yeah. I know I'm relating so much to what you're saying. And I think, again, I'm sure the listeners now, you guys are listening and thinking, oh my gosh, yes, like what, and even the way you're presenting it, I think you're doing, I love the way you're sharing. Like, I'm like, so then what do we do? But just to relate to that, yeah, it does feel that like that. I know we were connecting over the fact that we both have boys, and it does feel like there's no extra time. You're constantly having to try one, keep them alive. It was funny. We just last night, my mom was watching the boys. We were meeting with some leaders at our church, and she calls me, which I knew if she was calling me, it was something like significant. I was like, oh, shoot, she knows we're meeting. Like, why is she calling me? I hear my son in the background screaming, and he like had fallen and had like a big scrape, and he wasn't letting her put the hydrogen peroxide on it, which I think it was overblown. He was fine, but it was just like that's boys. Like it's just like there's always something they fell, there's something they hurt, there's something that's they broke. Like, and
Yes.
it's just like even too, I was just talking with a friend. I was like, I went out to take the trash and my husband wasn't home. I left them inside for 2 minutes. I come back, they're screaming at each other. Like somebody took somebody's toy, somebody hit somebody. Like it's just constant. It's constant. And that feeling of, yeah, like my patience will run thin, the feeling of like, and even too, this is the vision driven podcast. I think you and I are probably like this. You keep describing the vision that I wanted. Like I'm a vision driven person. Like I've got an idea of how I want things to go in most areas of my life. And so, yeah, that disconnect, that misalignment, that the gaps that are there, they're very much felt. And yeah, it's super, super challenging. And I think a lot of moms feel like they are in this space where they've lost themselves, they are stressed, they don't have any time for themselves. I think it's easy, and I am not a victim-minded person. I try not to be. I don't like it, but I find myself there so often of like, I never get to her. Like, I just and like, can you like it's so easy to be in that place as well. And it's just this place of constant chaos. And so even though I think a lot of moms are relating to this right now, if you could give some like identifiers, like what are those first signs that a mom can start to detect, like, yeah, I'm buried, and how can she identify that, and what do we start to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to recognize, especially when it's just your way of life. At that point, it's hard to recognize where you're at. I think it comes down to it really is a simplified term, burnout. When
Yeah.
you're living out of alignment, when you are a certain type and you were this way your whole life, you grew up as a little girl and a teenager and even married, you had a certain way of living and you kind of knew who you were. Most of us kind of understood,
Yeah.
I'm a shy person. I am an outgoing person. I am a driven person. I like to relate. We
Yeah.
understand ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we get married and that growth, because we never stop growing. It's
Right.
not like when we get married, we're set in stone on who we are, or when we have
Right.
kids, we're set in stone. We're changing, but we
Right.
no longer take the time to focus on that part of us because all of our attention is now geared on these people who need us,
Hmm.
especially when they're infants and young,
Hmm.
toddlers. They are truly needing us
Yeah,
for
yeah.
survival.
By definition, yeah.
Teenagers, yeah, they can make a sandwich, but a baby can't. It requires you. And so when we're in that stage and we get multiple of those, and we've got a husband who we had before that, we no longer are taking the time to grow with ourselves and learn ourselves. And if we're not proactive, which who is proactive when you're trying to survive and learn this new human being that you're keeping alive, right? When
Hmm.
we're not proactive about that and we're changing, we start to let that piece of us slip. And I always kind of equate it to, you hear about so many couples that, especially when I was a little kid, I remember this often. They were together, and then their kids, once they went to college, those couples would divorce. And it was always so sad, and they would always say, "Oh, we've fallen apart.
Yeah.
We grew apart, right? It was all about the kids. We didn't do date nights. She's not the same person. I'm not the same person. It's time." I always thought that was so sad, but it's a very common statistic.
It
It's
is.
the same thing with us. We're just
Hmm.
not, it's not two people, it's us. And so we tend to stop working on ourselves, stop growing, stop doing the things that we love, that challenge
Hmm.
us. We're just invested in our little people, and we lose
Yeah.
sight of ourselves. And then once we kind of get through that manic episode of newborns or whatever that period is, if we haven't continued to work on ourselves like a married couple, we've grown apart from ourselves and we don't know who we
Hmm.
are. And it can be a very scary feeling to feel as if you're almost in an identity crisis with yourself. And I know I've gone through that, through not just motherhood, but my illness. But so many
Yeah.
moms that I have worked with, that I have worked one-on-one with, have experienced the same thing of
Yeah.
when they finally do take a breath, they recognize, I don't even know who I am anymore. I know who I was
Right.
before I had kids, but my priorities have changed. Everything has changed. The way that I deal with things, hopefully, has changed. We've become more mature, and
Hmm.
I don't know where to start. It's a very overwhelming, scary feeling.
Yeah, 100% is. And I think that's so helpful even to consider and think through how we become distanced from ourself. And I think a lot of times there are these feelings, certainly of the overwhelm, but of this like, and I mean, I'll share for myself. Sometimes it's this feeling of like dissatisfaction or this feeling of like, um, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest ones. I would say for me, and I know a lot are wired me. I know some are not wired like me. I'm more of like the achiever type, the driven type. And so then to go through the whole day and be like, I don't know what one thing I can hang my hat on other than my children are alive and fed, which maybe I should be, maybe we like, it feels like a low bar. It's an important bar, but like
Right.
otherwise, like I didn't, all I, like my one goal today was get the laundry done, or like I wanted to do this one thing or whatever. Like I've got all these books I want to read. Like I haven't, like sitting down to read a book is a luxury that just doesn't really exist. Lots of audiobooks because I agree. I think we must be learning and growing, a lot of podcasts, things like that. Even to the way from a health standpoint, like you probably get this, you said you were really involved in fitness. I used to be really big into weightlifting and I love that. I love feeling strong. I love pushing myself in that way. I haven't, I think I've lifted weights maybe, I think I'm being generous if I say 5 times this year. Am I working out? Yes, but it's the park workouts. I'm doing push-ups and pull-ups and squats. Like it looks different and having it's a concession that I have to make, but then I'm not gonna not work out. And so it's just like there's all these concessions, there's all these um just adjustments that have to be made that sometimes it's just hard to even still like I'm describing I'm still doing things, but I think I know for myself, there's still room for more. I'm ready to hear more from you, but there's still more room to have those moments, that intentional time for myself where that can exist. And I know a lot of I talk this is like I get together with my other moms and like we talk about it like, oh, like this, like it's a breath of fresh air oftentimes to get around the other moms because then that's at least when you know you're not alone. And then you get other ideas sometimes from other moms of like, oh, we do this or I do that, or like we can even offer to watch each other's kids, like you said, for those date nights. My husband and I have tried to be really intentional about that, even if it's just for a couple hours or a lunch date or something, because yeah, you're fighting not only for time for yourself to figure out where you can find these I call them handholds. I'm like, I'm slipping. Like I'll use this language with my hand, like I'm slipping. I don't have anything to hang my head on to hold on to. Like I'm just like sliding down.
Nails down a chalkboard.
Yeah, I'm like, ah! And and then even too, it's like and my husband's gone 2 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week, completely off at work, and he comes home and I'm just like, oh, here, take it, versus like, hey, honey, let's connect. And like, so yeah, all the things. So enough about me. Hopefully people relate to this. It is just people being concerned about me. But if you are, feel free to pray. I will take all the prayers. I'm gonna listen more to Aubree's podcast. But what's one simple thing a mom listening today can do to feel more like herself again? Like just like literally starting immediately. Like they're feeling heard, they're feeling seen. They can tell you've come up with something that's beneficial. Like right now, what's instant relief that they can have?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. There's so many things, but I'll tell you the first step of the Spark method that I take all my moms through when we start coaching. And it's
Yeah.
starting with setting up your foundation.
Yeah.
So take 5-10 minutes, and it needs to be minutes that are uninterrupted. Okay. So before your kids get up, when they're napping,
Yes.
have mom watch them, husband watch them, something. Get away and take some time to sit down and map out your top 3 to 5 priorities in life, your top values. And I know that at least when I did this exercise, when I started this,
Yeah.
and I did this exercise, it took a lot more than 10 to 15 minutes, but at least got the juices flowing for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
because I realized, oh my gosh, I don't even know anymore. Before
Hmm.
kids, I knew what my priorities were, and obviously
Hmm.
they didn't include my kids.
Yeah.
Well, my kids came along, and obviously those are going to be up there in my top priority list. But getting an idea of what is your priorities, what are your top values in
Hmm.
life,
Hmm.
can then help you move through the next step of how do I filter where I'm spending my time? Because a lot of times
That's
as
good. Yeah.
moms, yes, we become so busy by saying yes because we A, don't want to disappoint people, right? Often we're people pleasers. Or B, we feel guilt as a mom. Like oftentimes I will say yes to my kids over things that I probably shouldn't say yes to because I
Hmm.
don't want to feel the guilt of saying, no, mommy has to work right now. Or no, mommy
Hmm.
can't do that right now.
Hmm.
And that causes us to spin our wheels. So starting with the foundation of what are my top 3 to 5 foundational values in life, and looking at your calendar next, looking
Hmm.
at your schedule and looking at every single thing one by one and saying, does this line up with my
Right.
foundation? Does this line up with my values? If, planning the church picnic is a beautiful thing, but right now my value isn't in giving back to the church and the community. My
Yeah.
value is these top 3 to 5 things, then this might be where I say no. Because when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And we often
Yeah.
forget that. We forget when I say yes, yes, yes to I'm going to volunteer here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm
Hmm.
going to do this, then I might be saying no to a quiet afternoon with my kids playing board games. I might be saying no to working out. If I'm so busy from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. doing all these other things, I might be saying no to a workout, weightlifting. I
Hmm.
might be saying no to date night with my husband if I'm saying yes to all of
Hmm.
these other things. And
Hmm.
so I think that's really important to start with, is you've got to have an idea of what your core values are, and they're different for everybody, and they might be a little bit different in different seasons. Now, I think there's some that are across the board. For me, faith, I think a lot of us, for faith is my top, and it's not going to change
Yeah.
no matter
Yeah.
how old I am or if I have more kids or less, but there
Hmm.
are some things that are going to change. And so starting with getting a foundational idea of what are my top priorities in life, it's kind of your guiding light that you can then start to audit your schedule and make decisions. But you have to know where you're going. And a lot of times we don't in a transition. We get a little lost and
Hmm.
we lose our
Hmm.
footing. And so we've got to have that basis, that foundation in order to start climbing our way back out.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on how you navigate this with clients, because I know, so, we sit down, we make our priorities, and I mean, for sure, for most of us, it is faith. Like, and I was just telling someone too, I was like, if ever I thought that I could, get by in life and, just achieve all the things, do all the things, just out of my own efforts, parenting has brought me to the conclusion I can't, period. Like, there's like, I need Jesus, full stop. Like, there's like
Yes.
there's no way I could do it by myself without
Yeah.
him. And so
Yeah.
yes, number one, Jesus. Um,
Yes.
and then, usually it goes your marriage. And I think, with young kids, it is easy. And it's funny because when my husband and I first got married, like my husband's my dream man. Like I had the vision of what I wanted in a husband. God gave me him, and like he's so much even more than I like ever wanted and dreamed. He's like, I'm obsessed with him. He's amazing. And then I'm like, and so when people would describe, yeah, marriage is hard, you got to work on it, and I just was like, how? Like I married the man of my dreams. Like this is amazing. And then now I'm like, oh my gosh, like how do I have the most wonderful husband in the world? And like we don't even have a hot second. And like I'm like frustrated with him, even though he didn't do anything wrong. He's literally the sweetest. Like, and it does if you're not intentional with those connections and stuff. So, so we have faith, we have marriage, and then obviously it's kids. And I think oftentimes we stop there, right? Like it
Yeah.
goes faith, husband, kids. And we forget, like, if we don't take care of ourselves, and all of that's good and right, right? Like, it's good to put, well, and Jesus helped us with all the things, and like, 100, like, that's first. And, you say marriage and kids, and I think that order makes sense, but that if we don't understand how prioritizing those things works, we don't realize that we must create that space for ourselves in order to show up well for our marriage, for our kids. And I think, and in the name of being a good wife, in the name of being a good mom, and like I love how you use the examples of volunteering and whatnot. And I think one, I think a lot of us love to do that, but then two, it can feel obligatory. It can feel like, well, this is just what I have, like this is how it has to be. How do you kind of navigate that with your clients? Because I imagine you come up against these like, okay, I sat and I did it, but like I can't say no to anything. There's no wiggle room. I can't. Like it doesn't work. Like how do you kind of help them through that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's more a boundary issue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, right?
so that's a little bit later step in the protocol that we dig into
Sure.
once we come up across these roadblocks of,
Yeah.
okay, we understand what your values are. We understand what you want out of life, what your vision is. We now have your schedule and what your ideal schedule looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We see
Mm-hmm.
we're out of alignment. We start working on those routines to make sure you're in alignment. But then we come up against, how do I say no?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want people to not like me. I don't want people to be mad at me. I don't
Right.
want to disappoint people. And that's more a foundational belief that is
Mm-hmm.
something that we then work on. So that is mindset. It is learning how to tackle those beliefs and find out where they came from.
Yeah.
If we think about it logically, and this is what I kind of take a step back and talk to my clients about, if we think about it logically, if you asked me if I could go out to dinner with you as a girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, honestly, I'm just tired. I'm just spent right now, and I just don't feel like going out to dinner. Would that make me a bad friend? No.
No. Yeah.
Would you be mad at me? Would you be disappointed in me? No, you probably would feel empathetic and think, oh, I've been there. Like, I get
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
fine. We'll do it a different time.
Yeah.
So when we take a step back and start challenging these beliefs of, does that make me a bad mom if I
Mm-hmm.
say no? Does that make me a bad wife? Does
Mm-hmm.
that make me why do I think it makes me taking a step back? Why do I think? Where did that come from? Would I think about that if that happened to me with my girlfriend or my kid or my husband? We
Yeah.
can start to change those mindset beliefs, and that helps us to give ourselves permission to then set those boundaries. So we've got to unwire, rewire some of those probably deep-seated beliefs, find out where they came from,
Yeah.
why they're there, what they're serving, and start to give ourselves some other brain pathways that are healthier to help us to get more of what we want instead of doing yes, 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 just so that we don't cause any sort of uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I love that you mentioned too, like addressing the pathways and rewiring, because I think that's the beauty of God's design for our brain is we feel like even to the point of this is who I was before kids, we're never going to be that person again. And that's okay. And that's a good thing. But we get to find the pathways that are serving us and our kids and like recognizing like it's all malleable, like nothing is set in stone. There's that opportunity to change everything. And I think that's really encouraging and like where we have a lot of hope in what God's able to do in our lives and what he's able to bring about because it can feel hopeless. It can feel like there's just no way. I'm always like, because I've worked with clients and anything where there's like habit change, at the core, to your point, it's usually deep-seated change that has to occur in your mind, and there's beliefs and things that are creating these patterns that feel immovable, that feel impossible to break. And I love that you've mentioned that, and I think that's awesome that your clients are getting that support. It sounds very practical, and it also sounds very freeing and holistic in just terms of looking at those different aspects of how we approach life. Um, and and you kind of mentioned in your story how when you finally got well and you had this discrepancy between your vision of what you wanted motherhood to look like and then where you found yourself, and you said, life comes up, there are transitions, there's grief, there's hardship, there are all these different aspects of life we come up against. And how do we juggle that as our kids are growing up, as we're, giving ourselves to these things, as we're trying to deal with our own stuff inside of us? How do we do that without losing ourselves in the process?
Oh my gosh. It's the $1 million question of how do I
Yeah.
work on myself when I've got all of the other things that I have to
Right.
still keep afloat?
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that I would suggest is starting to create time,
Hmm.
because you can't do anything without time. So looking at your schedule and where you can start to create time for you to process through this stuff, time for you to start putting in little pockets of things that line up with what you need. So some of my values, I mean, I definitely have the value of faith, family, fitness, but
Hmm.
also for me is future. So I, like you,
Mm.
am a very growth oriented person.
Yeah.
I've always been a high achiever and
Yeah.
checking things off the box. I love a good checklist. It makes me feel
Amen.
like I achieved something today.
Yeah.
Um, and when I was in the throes of not just motherhood, but illness, it
Yeah.
wasn't about achieving. It was literally about surviving.
Right.
And so I lost that part of me. And that was a huge part of me that made me
Yeah.
feel like me. And it made
Yeah.
me feel more like I'm a victim. I am a victim, not just of my illness, but of my circumstances. All I am is, the provider of nutrition for my kids, which is huge. Like you said, it's
Hmm.
a huge thing. I kept
Hmm.
those kids alive, but I
Hmm.
wanted more. And
Yeah.
I had always needed that as part of who I am. That's how God created me.
Yeah.
And that part was missing. And so I had to find a way to start having little pockets of achievement
Yeah.
and looking at my daily life and deciding how can I, in this present moment, turn motherhood into more of who I am and
Yeah.
using my strengths. And that's kind of where, I don't know if I've talked about it yet, but I created the Finding Mom assessment for
No,
moms.
yeah,
And
you haven't
that,
talked about it. I'm glad you brought it
yeah,
up.
that's just a free quiz, and I'll give it to you to give to the listeners. But
Yeah.
it looks at the moms, what they were like before having kids. So what your identity was, what type of person you were before, who you are now as a mom,
Hmm.
and if you're integrated, if you're out of alignment, so that
Hmm.
you can kind of see, are you parenting in your strengths? Are you parenting like the world has told you to parent? And so because of that, you're feeling burned out, you're feeling lost because you're not parenting
Hmm.
as you are, you're parenting
Hmm.
as what, we pick up so many different things in the world on what a good mom is, right?
Yeah.
And so it teaches you, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How can you parent in your strengths and let go of all the other stuff that isn't you? It helps you to become more in alignment. And that is that helped me tremendously to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm an achiever mom with an architect. So I love achievement. Sometimes in parenting, it's not necessarily something that you're going to check off a box,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
so how do I add that little part in? I don't
Yeah.
like, personally, a weakness for me with an achiever mom. I don't like to sit on the floor and have creative play for hours because to me it feels, it doesn't feel right. It feels uncomfortable. I don't feel my cup is full when I play, car racing all day. But I have always loved playing games with my boys, and I never
Hmm.
knew why. Well, now I know I'm an achiever mom. It gives me achievement. I check it off
Hmm.
the box. We
Hmm.
did a
Hmm.
game.
Hmm.
Or I like to do book clubs with my boys, love to read, my older two. So
That's
we'll do
awesome.
book clubs so that we have something to work on together, and at the
Hmm.
end, we take our book club and we usually, like last one, Redford, where the red fern grows. Oh my
Oh,
goodness, I
huh.
cannot talk. So it comes with a movie. So
Oh,
my middle son
cute.
and I read the book, we met together. Each week we did a chapter. It's achieving. We're checking it
Hmm.
off the box, at least in my mind. I feel more in alignment with myself. I love it. And then we set up a themed Where the Red Fern Grows movie nights where we do
Cute.
snacks from the book, and we're getting that connection time. I'm parenting in my strength.
Yeah.
I'm building connection. I'm feeling more like myself, and I'm good at that. That's where I'm naturally gifted. Where my friend might be a creator mom, and she's wonderful at creating and doing fun art boot camps or doing fun creative games, like playing on the ground all day, playing Barbies and that sort of thing. And that's where she feels filled. She doesn't feel filled when she's doing like we just did a room declutter. My kids, we do a room declutter camp every summer where I go with them. Yeah, room in the room. We call it their little apartment room. And I go with them and we do a section every day and declutter. And I teach them the skill of here's how you declutter, here's how you organize so that when they move out, they know the skill. And it's not just me going in their room. I used to go in their room and just clean it out. When they were gone, I clean it out, get rid of.
Right.
And then I thought, how are my kids going to do this for themselves if I don't teach them? So it's again, me thinking, okay, my strengths here are in setting up processes and in achieving and checking off a box and making lists and having a start and a finish, a good, here's a before, here's an after. Those types of things are where clearly I'm like lighting up talking about it. I like those things. And so
I'm lighting up too. We're cut from the same cloth. I'm like,
let me take more of my strengths that I've learned through, creating this profiling, take more of my strengths and integrate that into parenthood. And I feel more like myself. I'm less burned out because I'm I'm filling my own cup here, but I'm doing it in a way that is also connecting to my kids. And so we're both winning. And my parenting and my tank is running over. And that way, rather than me being drained, sitting on the floor every day, which nothing wrong with it. It's just not the way I'm wired, but sitting on the floor every day and doing pretend play. That was not working for me.
Yeah. No, oh my gosh, I relate to that so much. It's not even funny, but I love that. And I think that's such a good like light bulb of just like, yeah, like and to come back to your assessment to know like this is how I'm wired. These are my giftings. Like I don't have to try to fit myself into someone else's like because you see stuff on Instagram, you talk to other friends like, oh, I did this or oh, it was so great, we did that. And then, it's like, okay, well, let me try that. And it's like that either doesn't work with you or it doesn't work with your kids. And it's just like, well, shoot, like we're failing or whatever. Like it's not working. Yeah. And so I think that's awesome that you've kind of discovered how to make that work for you and for your kids, because I'm sure they love that. And I'm sure that, works well for them as well. This is so good. And I could talk to you all day and I would be like, tell me more about all the things that you've discovered because I feel like we're wired very similarly. Yes. But how can someone else who's feeling like me get more from you, hear more from you, learn more about what you offer?
Yeah. So I have a podcast. It's called Mom Intentional. So that's available, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And then I do have the Finding Mom quiz, the personality profile quiz that I was just telling you about. And that's on my website, which is www.momintentional.com. So that's pretty easy. Same as my podcast name. Yeah. And from there, if you're interested in doing some one-on-one coaching or going through the Spark method, that's also on that website. So that's really the best way to kind of look through and find what you're looking for.
Awesome. I will include all the links to that in the show notes. So if you're listening, you just got to go there. It'll all be available, her podcast, website, and the assessment. But otherwise, Aubree, this has been so good. I feel energized from it and just like excited to like, okay, let's do this. Let's spend more time figuring out how to make more time, being intentional, like prioritizing it. Like, honey, let's talk about this. Like, what are our priorities? So I think this is so good, so helpful, and I'm excited for the people that are already getting this from you and for the listeners that are able to glean more from what God's done through you, Aubree. This is super cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. It's been so fun. I feel like I've made a new friend over here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Vision Driven Health podcast today. I hope this episode inspired you, supported you, and blessed you in some way. If it did, it would mean the world if you would leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast and share this episode on your social media. The more reviews and shares this gets, the more people can be blessed and encouraged in creating a Jesus-centered, sustainable, healthy lifestyle. If you want to hang with me and other Jesus-loving ladies who are creating healthy habits that last, be sure to join my free Facebook group, the Made Well Mastermind. Use the link in the show notes to join. Be blessed with hope, joy, and health. I'll see you next week.